If you doubted for even a second that EA would release FIFA 15 this year, then you're a fool. A damned fool, I tell you. But having announced it in the run-up to E3, we were able to check in with the game and see what improvements they're bringing to the table this time around. With plenty to discuss, we also sat down with producer Sebastian Enrique to talk about the game and some of those changes. Okay, so we're here with the latest evolution of the FIFA series, and just to quickly summarise, I mean, what key features, what key areas are you focusing on with this season, with this release?
There are 4 items for us that are kind of the pillars or the buckets where we're putting everything we're building. One of them is what we call emotional intensity, that really want to, now that we have the power, want to continuously increase and bring that passion, that atmosphere that to support the emotion of the sport, like really making a super immersive game in terms of emotions. The other one is the visuals. So visuals for us, Gen 4, so if you own a Gen 4 console, you will expect like a really spectacular visuals. And this year we have a new technology for rendering or illumination that is called physically based rendering. And with tons of different things like the pitch degradation, so it really takes the visuals to the next level. From my personal point of view, I think the leap visual-wise from 14 to 15 is insane. It's amazing. In terms of gameplay, 2 main aspects. One is what we call player control. That bottom line is responsiveness. Like really make every part of the game super responsive. So whatever you want to do, you do it right away. And the other one is what we call unrivaled intelligence, that is continuously improving the AI, so artificial intelligence, for your teammates and for the opponents to make them more human in a sense. So when you're playing against the CPU AI, when you play against the computer opponents, you really start getting more the feeling towards, okay, this feels more like if we are playing online with random people rather than with a computer. And in terms of the teammates, so it's smarter, so you start having better passing lanes, better opportunities. It's making a game of football that overall you combine all these pieces. I think it makes a much better football experience, so you really feel the game, you really feel the atmosphere, and I think it's a much more fun game to play.
So this is like the second year you've been working with these new consoles. I mean, how much of this are you able to do just off the back of getting more familiarity with the hardware that you've got to play with? How much is that a factor?
It's a lot of it. So on the first year of a console, you just don't need to beat a game, so you also need to make it work on the new hardware. At the same time, you're learning the new hardware. On the second year, you learned a lot from that hardware, you learned a lot from that architecture, but at the same time, so on the first year you were building a lot of things to set you up for success in the future. So you can start building many more things in the future. Like one example for us on first year was a rewrite of the presentation system that is much more, it is AI driven, it is context sensitive, removing all the scripted sequences by AI driven sequences. And then on year 2 is just adding content, so continue refining the system and adding content. So when you look at the results or what you get after learning what you learned, after not just having to make it work on the console, but now you can start exploiting, like taking really the juice out of the consoles, that's when you start seeing the huge differences.
Yeah, so like FIFA 14 was almost like setting the foundations for 15, and you kind of see that with the ball physics, where where in FIFA 14 you had pure shot, you had a lot of new additions for the air movement of the ball, and now you've taken that with the ball on the ground as well?
Yeah, to tell you the truth, so when the gameplay guys approached me and said, hey, so the only part of the ball physics that is missing is a ground physics, because we have this rotation that is not considering all the touches and it's not really applying like an accurate model. I thought it was going to be just a visual thing, just applying, okay, so you will see like a nice ball rotation on the replay cameras when the ball is on the ground. I was so wrong about that, because the end result is that you can have ground passes that were never possible before. You can see ball deflections that were never possible before, that are much more accurate to real life. And that combined with a new dribbling system that is using the right inside or outside of the foot, the preferred foot, it makes a huge difference. And such a simple concept as having accurate ball physics on contacts that one might think is just a visual thing, it gives so much to the game that is impressive.
Because you have yearly releases, do you think sometimes it's difficult to explain exactly how you have to go about fixing all these things, like the rebounds, for example? Before they would, in the presentation earlier, it was said that it would very often go straight back to the same team, whereas like that's not really what happens. But the ball physics helps that. So how do you go about explaining how important it is to do these groundwork things and how it has that knock-on effect to the gameplay?
Yeah, yes. Sometimes it is very difficult to explain some things, like team tactics. That we have the emergent behaviors, and at the end of the day, you can explain in such a visual way with in the mixer or parking the bus kind of behaviors.
These little catchphrases.
Yes, but at the end of the day, it's not just about that. So all these medium and long-term objectives, they give so much emergent behavior into the game that it really makes it much better. So you start seeing when the opponent starts really needs the points for whatever context. Imagine there is CPU AI. You start seeing how the striker or how the ball possessor, they start taking more risks. They start trying to do like a skill moves on you. You start seeing situations that you're like, how did that happen? But it's all emergent behavior thanks to this system that we're building in terms of making better use of objectives, not just having to decide frame after frame on whatever I'm seeing at this moment, but having an overall vision and team objective of what to do in the game. So we try to find what are the ways to explain this better, but the reality is that yes, it is tough sometimes to explain.
One of the things that you're adding to it's kind of to the AI, but it's also to the presentation which you have, is the kind of emotions that each player goes through during a match, and how they react to missing a shot, that kind of thing. But it's something which I don't believe really comes into fact as a factor when you're actually playing the game. Why did you just choose to keep it separate, keep it just for the presentation, and not actually affect the gameplay?
It is a good question. Reality is that I don't believe yet that we are ready to affect gameplay because of that.
Right.
Why? Because if I were sure that we will produce today something that is fair for everyone, that it doesn't feel scripted, I don't want anything scripted, I want everything that is contextual, that feels right, and it won't cause you a frustration of something that you didn't want to happen and you were forced to. Until we are sure that all of those things are eliminated, I don't want anything to do with that.
Yeah.
Why? So imagine it was Simeone and Beckham, like in 1998, like Simeone, like knowing that he could make Beckham react, he was going and annoying Beckham all the time until he got Beckham recorded.
It does kind of feel though that maybe not for this release, but eventually, because that is a factor, you annoy the other player until they do something rash.
It's something that might be coming into play, but today, so there are so many situations in football that I don't feel we can get there in a way that it's going to be a good way. So that's why we say, okay, let's not get there yet. Yeah. And other situations is like the pitch degradation. So the pitch degradation that you see, so we use, it's not just random noise. So we really consider every single step, we really consider every single slide, the strength of that step, the strength of that slide to represent the footprints. And in real football, you would say, okay, if there is a small hole on the pitch, the ball will behave differently when passes over there. We didn't want to get there either, because even from the gameplay camera, it will be so hard for you to see that there is a hole, that you don't really want that, because you will say the game is cheating against me, what the hell happened there? Throwing the controller through a window, whatever. So we don't want to create situations where you will feel frustrated with the game, unless we are sure that it will feel good.
Yeah. You're not really talking about PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 versions at the moment, but what can you say about these versions of the game? Have they been relegated to legacy updates, or are they still seeing active development?
They have active development, so it's not just roster updates and kit updates. So we are working towards taking as much as we can from what we're building on Gen 4 and putting on those consoles. So we're limited, obviously, in terms of processing power and in memory. So things like, to give you an example, the ball contacts, the correct contacts for the ball, or the ground physics, that's going to be on Gen 3. Right. But the player emotions, tracking all the players' emotions will not. So it's not that it's not possible building it on Gen 3. It's that for building on Gen 3, we will have to take something else out. And I'm going to be extreme in this scenario, but will you take passing out in order to put that in? So
I would like to see you try and make a FIFA game without passing.
Well, some play like that. But you get the point. So you need to choose what is the right things, so we're going to be telling the future, spelling out this is on Gen 4 and it's not on Gen 3, like for every single feature. But rest assured that it's not just browser updates. We're actively working on it.
And finally, this is more a hypothetical question.
Yeah.
What kind of circumstances would it take for you to consider putting women's football into the FIFA game, for example?
It is on the list of stuff. Yeah. So we have a huge list of things we want to build, community requests, and so when we start even though we have a list of stuff to build for many years to come, but even when we start every year, like we need. And we want to start just with a small scope to decide, okay, this is what we're going to build. We end up for stuff for building for 4 or 5 FIFAs. Yeah. And some things make the cut, some doesn't. So women football is one of the things that it is on our list, but so far it wasn't a priority compared to other things.